as the business owner, you take a lot of punches to the face, but it
Right.
feels great to go around to your team and hand them a physical reward. It feels good.
I just cut our Google ad spend to zero. We got better at lead attribution. And the more time I spent on lead attribution, like, yes, we got leads from it, but the leads were closing worse. And like, we weren't really generating a positive, like, ROAS, like return on ad spend. And so, like, I just cut it and we'll see what happens.
Can you shorten your time horizons in the way you assess your business during busy season to have more regular dopamine hits? Like, we used to put when we were in the dumpster business, like literally a piece of paper on the door so that every day and every week we would have like a count for number of rentals that we had. And so like we would just target shorter term goals to have the dopamine hits not so far away.
By the way, if there are business owners listening to this who are down to come on and just get like a free coaching session, or like not even coaching, just like a chop it up about your business strategy, like we could totally do that, right?
I think it's a great idea. I think it would be fun if you've got to be at least a year, 2 or 3 in, so you fundamentally understand the levers of the business. Our guest today is Alex Hinch, a co-founder of Rejig, a platform that connects business owners looking to sell to buyers of small companies. Alex found his way to the ETA space via business school. He was getting his MBA at Harvard and came to 2 simultaneous realizations: that ETA was awesome and that the search process was very inefficient. Simultaneously, his co-founder Barrett was helping his mom sell her small family business. He wanted to build a better experience for the lower middle market that didn't involve brokers. Alex and Barrett started building Rejig together in 2022 and have grown the platform to over 500 business owners looking to sell. We're actively meeting small business buyers on the platform today. 19 transactions have closed on Rejig to date, totaling over $75 million of business enterprise value transacted.
All right, let's just dive in, because I think every searcher who has ever been, gone through the process with a business broker, they've had kind of that dream of, I got to disrupt business brokerage. I just, I've had that experience, and there's a bunch of reasons why business brokerage as an industry exists the way it does. But I'm curious, this is a problem set that a lot of people have thought about, a lot of people have attempted. Tell me, where did you and your co-founder sort of arrive at, like, hey, like, this is the approach that we think will work?
Yeah, I'll come at that from 2 angles. The first, I'll just say, as people should do, I think, when they start new businesses, we talk to a lot of people in space. And, we asked people, like, what is your most burning problem? And so when you talk to people looking to buy small businesses, what they say is it's deal flow. They go to bed at night thinking about, how can I talk to more business owners tomorrow than I talked to today? And that's true. They wake up in the morning thinking about searchers. Yeah. On the flip side of it, when we talk to business owners, almost none of them said, I wish I could talk to more searchers, or I wish more searchers called me. This is not a sentiment that they had. And they said, the last thing I'm looking to do is to pay for deal flow. So, I think that, and I would posit that I think that may not have always been the case, that maybe 25 years ago, when you're selling your small business, it was actually a little bit different, where owners' phones aren't ringing off the hook with searchers. They're like, hey, I want to sell this thing and I don't know where to start. I need to go hire a professional to kind of plug me into the capital markets. So I think that there's that shift that is kind of the first place we start from, which is why our model is, focused on charging buyers and being free to sellers, because we think that attracts the best supply, and that most business owners aren't willing to pay to access this type of thing. So I guess that's the first thing I'd say, is that, like you, I totally, understand why brokers exist and why the market kind of developed that way. But I do think that there's a change coming, and that we're in the middle of, where the buyer side of the market is growing at a pace faster than the sell side of the market. I think there's some, in my opinion, a little bit misleading media around the silver tsunami and things like that. I actually think that, like, the buy side has outstripped the growth in the kind of retiring baby boomers at this point. So maybe that's my first comment. I'll just say also that we don't like hate brokers or think they shouldn't exist or hope they all go bankrupt. What I'll say is I think that there will always be a part of the market where there are people who want to use a human to sell their business. I think that is true, certainly more true as you get larger in size. And some of that just comes down to economics. And this is, my co-founder Barrett's realization as he's helping his mom sell their small family business. It's just, I think business owners are used to kind of understanding, what that you get what you pay for a little bit when it comes to professional services. And so if you're selling a business worth $1 million, I think you understand that you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, right?
Mhm.
If you can pay an advisor $50,000, or like 5% of your transaction, but the work it takes to sell a small business and run a process and do all the meetings, and it's a kind of a full-time job. Maybe you can do this with 3 or 4 businesses a year, but some of them aren't going to sell, and so it's all success-based. Anyway, that the quality of advice you can get at that part of the market is going to be tough to find kind of a great advisor. The economics of that are different when you start talking about $50 million businesses, right? I think you can easily justify like, hey, I'm going to find some killers to come in here for $200,000 a year and really like maximize the value. But I think that the equation is very different at the lower side of the market. So I don't know if this is the perfect answer to your question, but I guess like it's kind of those two things that that we came at the business and said, I think there's some way to serve this smaller part of the market the way that we are.
Right. And just to make sure I'm 100% clear. So the buyers, they pay the subscription to sort of access deal flow, and the deal flow, you guys are going out and recruiting sellers, right? And so it's not sort of like a broker is repping a seller and they bring their deal on. I mean, maybe there's some of that also, but in particular, you're really trying to find sellers for direct listing.
That's exactly right. I'll just caveat one thing, which is the subscription piece is actually quite a small part of our business. We mostly make our money from buyer paid success fees at close. So we have a small subscription program that kind of gets you priority access to leads and things, but really we make most of the money on success fees.
So my question would be, if I'm a typical self-funded ETA buyer and I think of you as a lead source, is there a description of the kinds of leads I'm going to find on Rejig? Size, geography, industry, you name it. We know they're direct. Sellers are selling direct to us, the buyers, but any other filtering?
We describe our sweet spot as like $300,000 of EBITDA up to $3 million of EBITDA. So something's bigger, something smaller, but that really is our sweet spot. We call ourselves industry agnostic, but we really focus on industries we know are preferred by searchers, or put another way, industries where transactions are easier to happen. So, when there's recurring revenue, durable profitability, businesses that have been around for at least 15 years. So we focus on those industries so that we focus on those characteristics, which keeps us out of certain industries. Like you won't see a lot of restaurants on the platform and things like that. But we describe ourselves as industry agnostic.
That's really interesting. Okay, so the framework I should have if I'm a searcher really kicking off is definitely still use the brokers as a channel, but Rejig will supplement my deal flow. If I'm self-funded, almost by definition, the size range is going to work based on what's on Rejig. And you've done a bit of filtering for me by bringing higher quality revenue transactions to the table. So it's a really good opportunity.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, our kind of some part of where we come from is that I think the textbook on some of the textbooks on ETA say you should be doing both brokered and proprietary, that you should build relationships with brokers and then hire interns and get a gratis subscription and just start dialing through the list. We want to supplement or replace your proprietary efforts, your unbrokered efforts. We built it to, we built the platform to hopefully be a quick way to get started in that, and a much more cost-effective, much less headache-inducing way to get in front of small business owners that way.
Got it. Okay, so this makes a lot of sense to me. You've already said that the sort of buyer set has outstripped the set of sellers out there with quality businesses. So to me, it just sounds like sellers and their companies for sale are your inventory. How do you go building up that inventory?
Yeah. The way I'd put it is we want to have a conversation with like every small business owner in America and ask them if they're interested in selling their company and meeting with buyers. And the ones who opt into that, we want to put on our platform and put in conversations. We don't want any more owners than that, don't want any less owners than that. And so, you know, because we came from kind of the ETA space where there are playbooks on this, as well as PE and other places, right? Like we really like to think that we're taking the best practices from those things. So we are running, I think, like a very, relatively sophisticated and scaled search operation, essentially. So we do a lot of, outreach on the phone. We find is just the most effective way to get in front of business owners still at this point is calling owners on the phone and talking to them about whether or not they're interested in meeting with buyers. But, we supplement that with other forms of outreach. But essentially, our goal is just to get in front of every business owner in America. And when they are thinking about selling their business, we want them to start by having a few conversations with buyers on the platform. We've run billboards, we've done postcards, but I'll be honest, talking to people on the phone is just the most effective still in our mind.
Right. I mean, let's talk about the tab, right? Like, so the Lehman success fee on the back end, walk us through how it works.
Yeah. The Lehman, as I understand, was developed by, the now defunct Lehman Brothers as a fair way to charge deal fees. So it kind of smooths things out. So it's, 5% of the first million, 4% of the second million, 3% the third million, 2% of the fourth million, and then above 4 million, 1%. So it kind of like, I'm not that good at math, but, asymptotically approaches 1% as the deal gets bigger and bigger. So yeah, we've just, to be honest, we've iterated a few times and tried our own things, but learned that there's a reason that this has persisted. It's like a reasonably fair thing. We had a flat percent for a while. We were getting feedback from the small deals who, would happen on our platform. They'd give us a relatively small fee and they'd say, this is great. You should definitely raise your price. And then we were getting some pushback on some of the bigger fees. So we decided that the Lehman is kind of the fair way to move forward. But yeah, it reflects the fact that there's some fixed costs associated with sourcing a business for us. It's not that much. It's not really any cheaper for us to source a deal that is, very small. But at the same time, there's like a much larger willingness to pay. So I think it's like a fair compromise between us and the buyers on that.
And so in a $5 million, if it's a $5 million EV deal, that works out to like $150K? What is the math?
So it's 3%.
Nice. Oh, I was right. Cool.
Nice.
So what's, at least my observation has been, searchers will never say no to roughly 3% or Lehman because they don't actually have to incur the cost until they are sitting at the closing table. Where there's a little bit of heartburn is when they have to go speak with their lender or the parties and their sources and uses and talk about who's financing the cost or the fee. So have you had any of your buyers, do you know how they're financing it? Or I guess what I'm really getting at is, are SBA lenders able to finance the fee?
It's a great question. And the answer is yes. We recently had it done for the first time a few weeks ago. That there's some ways that, I'm not an expert on this and I don't want to, say that we're always going to be able to, but we were able to do it recently. And so I do believe it's financeable. It isn't, you bring up another interesting point there, which is interesting, I think, to explore, which is some of the pushback we've gotten from funded, especially searchers, is, hey, the reason I funded the funded searcher, this is the investor speaking, is for you guys to go do this search and to go reach out to businesses.
Good point.
What do you mean? Like, I'm now also paying Rejig to do the search. And so I do think that there is some tension that I think we have not fully explored or found the bottom of, that is about whose economics our fee comes out of. And, while I love, look, there's a part of me that's like, 1%, 3%, 4%. It's not so material that it's going to kill deals or materially affect economics. But at the same time, I get it. $150,000 is not, nothing. And so, I think it'll be interesting to see how it's absorbed. I guess what I would just hope all parties remember, and what I find myself trying to remind parties frequently, is that if a broker was involved, the fees would have probably, like, some part of that would bleed through to you too. You just don't, it just wouldn't appear as a line item, right? So when the owners charge 12% by benchmark, some of that is being paid by an increased price. I don't know how much. It probably depends a little bit, but I think that there should be enough economics for everybody to eat and be happy, in our deal, considering how much intermediary cost is removed.
If you're a funded searcher, right, or like an investor in funded search, like a few months of saved search expenses alone, right, like you pretty quickly are caught up on the savings.
I agree. It's a tough to it's the tough to quantify savings that are always hard to negotiate.
And for them, that's like actual like dollar for dollar equity, right? And so you would think, it's
a good point. That's a really good point. If you save a year of your funded search,
that's like $200K, right?
Cost. Yeah,
or maybe $150K. Like yeah.
But isn't this really the case where it doesn't really matter if the seller is paying the fee or the buyer is paying the fee? Somebody's paying the fee. And therefore, they're just going to consider it in their price when they come to the negotiating table. So, either way, it should work. What's interesting that I've seen also is the ETA community now has been around long enough. I know Rejig is newer, but we're seeing searchers who have acquired, then for good reasons or for other reasons, want to transact and sell. So I would be interested to see for the searchers who buy off Rejig, and maybe the ones who don't, if they then go to Rejig as a place to sell, knowing it'll save them transaction costs.
Yeah, look, I'm, very bullish about this kind of turnover of business owners you're describing, where, right now in 2025, a lot of the business owners who are on the Rejig platform are probably people who started their business, in the 90s or, in the 2000s, and might have had a broker relationship for a long time. And again, like, kind of grew up in a world with some different dynamics, like we talked about earlier. I do think that in 2030 and 2035, a lot of those, business owners selling, to your point, are, people who, to Kaustubh's point, probably might have thought at one point, like, I need to disrupt the broker model, and I'm going to try something new when I'm exiting the business. So I definitely think it's hopefully a tailwind, and it's a slow business for us, but certainly a lot of buyers have said to us on the way out of the transaction, like, oh, well, I'll definitely be back once we're selling the business, or even for roll-ups and other things. So we're building repeat customers, but it's certainly a long horizon in our business compared to some others.
Right, but you're getting the snowball rolling as buyers buy. Your inventory, your future inventory, will grow.
Yep.
And basically, the average hold period is probably going to compress, right? And so that alone just increases deal volume per year.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, like, you think the hold period will get closer to 5 years or 7 years, because that's the way that searchers and their investors think about exits.
All right, welcome back to The Intentional Owner. Sam, where are you calling from?
I am calling from your time zone, which is Pacific time. Let's see. For those of you on video, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. I am
That's
in
a misleading
Las Vegas.
pick. Yeah, because the Las Vegas normally looks so much more desert, but you're just overlooking a golf course.
Yep, very true.
Which golf course is that? Do you know?
It's the Wynn Golf Course.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
I played once. So I don't know if I've told you about this, but we invested at my first job when I worked at Bain Capital. We invested in this gaming company, like gambling, like machines, like hardware. So we would come out to Vegas once a year for the big gaming conference. And so I've played some of the golf out there, where me and my boss would drive out like an hour out and play some of those kind of resort courses.
Yeah.
And one of the places, I remember, when you rent your clubs, they give you an extra 15th club, which is just like a really crappy old, wedge of some sort. And they're like, hey, if the ball goes off the course and like is in kind of the desert land, like do not step out because there's like snakes and scorpions. Like use this club to retrieve your ball, otherwise it's gone. And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
okay, yeah, this $3 ball is not worth it to me at all.
To get bit by a cobra or a rattlesnake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So Las Vegas is interestingly cloudy, rainy, and not hot. And we're recording at the end of August. I know.
Wow.
Very hot.
We're having a heat wave here, and it was 80 yesterday, which for us is really hot with the mugginess. And we have a big project underway, which is a little bit unfortunate timing wise, like weather wise, but luckily it's a time and materials project, so it'll be all right.
Nice. Lucky you. All right. Well, since we're there, a lot of us just nod our head when you say time and materials. But what does that actually mean?
Yeah. So the vast majority of our work is what we'd call fixed price or fixed contract, where we went out, we gave the client a quote based on, like seeing what trees we had to work on. And we're basically committed to that price regardless of what happens within reason, right? If there's big changes, then we can make changes. But that's kind of our standard for homeowners. For larger projects where there's more unknowns or just uncertainties, we'll switch to time and materials, where basically we are charging a certain labor rate per hour that the job takes us. And we're charging, for us, materials is pretty simple compared to your fencing business. But for us, materials is usually dump fees for removing wood. So we'll charge some kind of a dump fee plus a markup on that.
Do you charge like rental of equipment?
We do if we need to. Yeah. So this project we included that as well.
And do you charge like, not per diem, but mileage or transport cost, mobilization cost?
I put it into most of our time and materials contracts. I write in as port to port.
Yeah.
So it's baked into that.
Got it. So then let's go pro and con, because especially on SMB Twitter, occasionally you'll see these debates around fixed cost pricing. And remember, there's risk in fixed cost pricing for those of us out there. It's not just about how much margin you can make. It's also about managing how you don't get your rear end handed to you when you underestimate labor or some, quirk in the scope.
And every year there's a couple big jobs that we end up underbid on that suck. Yeah.
And then you referred to like, unless there's a big difference, in which case you could issue like a change order potentially, or you could request a change order from your customer.
Well, basically, if there's a difference that was not our fault, then we will request a change order. Example is recently we had an $8,000 contract to remove several trees, a fixed price with the homeowner. And then between when our estimator went there to give the quote and then when our crew showed up for the job, they had installed a bunch of landscaping under the trees, which it's just like I get that like homeowners don't always think through like how is the tree going to get removed, but it's like, okay, like our entire drop zone, like what was going to be easy job, because it was like a construction site before they're developing a new home there. So like before we could literally just send the trees, just drop them chunk by chunk. Now we have to rig each piece down slowly to avoid damage. And so like in that case, like we have to basically say like, hey, the price is going to be different, versus if we just screwed up our quote, like then we eat it. That's on us.
So let me ask the $1 million question. What's better? Where can you make more money?
I believe that if you are in a trade where you can hire better and better people over time, or train your team to get better and better over time, then you should be in a fixed price model, right? Because ultimately the value of the project is what the value is to the client, right? So if your team can complete a $5,000 project in half a day that other contractors will take a full day, like if you switch to time and materials, like all of that value is going to the client and they're underpaying for what it's worth to them. And you can never actually afford to pay your team, in accordance with their skill level. And so to me, like you have to be fixed price, because as your team gets faster, you can then pay them more because they can complete more fixed price jobs in the same amount of time.
I think that's right. And then I think about it two more ways. One is, if you think about it, the time and materials, there's less risk. In theory, you'll never lose money. You'll always just make an agreed upon labor rate, maybe a little markup on the material. So there's less risk. So in life, less risk, less reward. There will inherently be less markup or margin on it. And then the other one I say is like in the short run, you could always pad your time and material costs like contractors do. It's unethical, but it happens. In the
Totally.
short run, you might be able to get away with that. In the long run, that'll catch up with you. Your reviews will suck. Your reputation will be that you're a bait and switch contractor, and you'll pay the price.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, this big project we have this week, it's for the public utility here, which is the first time we've worked for them as a client, which is pretty cool. And, but we're doing this one time in materials. It's a big, it's like a 50K type project.
Yeah.
And it's just, I do not want to go over, right? Like, it's our first time working with this client. I want to show that we can bid them correctly. So obviously when we do time and materials, we still gave them a quote based on what we think the work's going to be, but they understand that it's going to end up billing what it is. So I would really like to show like we can beat our quote.
Can I offer another example? Because I'm in this day in and day out. It's actually not the fence business. It is the law firm. So we started SMB Law Group a couple years ago. No free ads. And I would say 99% of lawyers on planet Earth charge an hourly billing rate. And so in many ways, it's a time and materials pricing structure. It 99% of the time pisses customers off because it always goes over. The alignment of interests is completely misaligned because people then they're afraid or don't disincentivize to pick up the phone and call their advisor, essentially.
Yeah.
So we changed the game by introducing a fixed price model, which was something a friend of mine did on my first 2 acquisitions when I became an entrepreneur.
Really?
And yes. So I worked at a law firm before leaving to become a searcher. And somebody who had left about a decade before me, who I got to know, was doing fixed price M&A work. And I had never heard of it. It had always kind of been a dream, but no. So what's the trade-off? The trade-off is because it's fixed price and it was largely contingent, the price was higher. So he made more on my transactions because he took risk and gave me a fixed fee.
Right.
But that entire experience is what we built our entire business off of.
But so the weird thing with legal, which is a little bit different than contractor, is it's harder to predict, I think, where the complications are going to arise.
It is.
Right. Because you don't know in advance, like, is the seller going to hire terrible counsel and make this an absolute drag out fight? Right. And so you have to bake in a lot of margin for error into your fixed price, right?
We do. Or what inevitably happens is, and we try to be as transparent as humanly possible. Sometimes in our fixed pricing, there are clients who inevitably get the better side of the trade. And then there are other clients who get the worst side of the trade. And because we see a lot of volume, that works out on the whole better for everybody. But it's impossible to predict. So like we have when
it's basically like insurance. It's like legal insurance for if you're a searcher where you ended up quote unquote overpaying for your specific project, like that's just because like your premium, you didn't end up filing a claim, right? You paid the premium, but you don't know. The searcher also doesn't know in advance if like their legal bill instead of being X $1,000 was going to be 3X $1,000.
And so the fact that we share risk, like we don't require people to pay us unless their deal closes. Sorry, they don't have to pay in full unless it closes. Is a consideration to offset that. What is likely a buffer to, because remember, in this world, most counterparty lawyers are not sophisticated deal lawyers. They're Googling representations and warranties as they're negotiating a purchase agreement. So anyway,
I've been lucky that both my original acquisition and the add-on were represented by 2 like real Seattle M&A firms. Really unusual. Yeah. And in both cases, it was the first one, the lawyer, her dad like fixes chainsaws as a hobby. So he knew the seller of my company that way. And so like the seller was sort of like, hey, like, let's get your daughter. And the daughter is like a legit M&A lawyer. Right.
Wow. That's neat.
And that was the first one. And then the second one, I forget if it was a client of the seller or how they became friends. But again, like high-powered kind of local M&A, partner. But like they had like a 3-person deal team, like doing legal.
You're lucky. That means your third one, you're going to strike out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm waiting for a good kind of like estate and wills attorney, on the next one.
You mean a general practice lawyer?
Yeah, exactly. God, that's the
Okay.
dream though, to have an actual. No, we don't really need a GC at all for our business, but I remember Jeff Homer, who did the ensemble music roll up. He's been on Acquiring Minds. I invested in that a while ago, which I was very lucky. He gives me shit because I didn't end up asking him to invest in my company, but like not for any specific reason, primarily just like I filled around really fast. And the reality is like his deal was a way better returns outcome than my deal will be. So like it still works out for him. But I remember when he finally like was able to make that hire, like a GC hire, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's like big league. Now you have like a lawyer that just only works for you. That's crazy.
And to be clear, like, I just want to acknowledge your humble brag there, how you quickly filled the cap table. Thank you, or you're
Thank you.
welcome.
Yeah. Well, did you notice that it was balanced out by the fact that like there's no returns to date?
It's early days, my friend. It's only year 3. Relax.
It's 3.5 years in, man. So Jeff, I won't say exactly what the return was, but Jeff exited for me it was like 3 years and 3 months, and it was a very positive outcome.
Okay. Well, when Bluma becomes a platform for consolidation, then
Yeah.
you're going to be doing the same thing.
No,
Like he
exactly.
did.
That's right. It is actually a good transition into what I wanted to talk about today, which is sort of what are alternative sources of wins for a business owner? Because I think I'm feeling it's the middle of our busy season. Like everyone's a little bit tired at the company. We've made a lot of new hires recently. So like there's some things that like break or like some normal systems that aren't going as smoothly. Not like catastrophic, but also like the vibes aren't that good right now, And so like I'm feeling that lack of tangible wins to sort of keep you motivated. Like I'm fully sold now, and we've talked about this a bunch. Like it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, you have to like enjoy the journey, make it sustainable. And I feel like I've done a lot of work to kind of make my week to week sustainable. But it'd be nice to have some more intermediate wins, like to kind of keep you going.
To be clear, are we talking work wins or personal wins?
I'm thinking work wins.
Okay.
Because I think like with your team, like your employees, your job is to sort of keep improving quality of life and improving kind of their enjoyment of their career. And like what I have found is as we improve things, like the goalposts kind of shift as they should. I don't think that's like that's not an unusual thing. And so like I feel like I don't feel it coming from that side of the table. Like there's always a new frustration that we should be solving better for the team. And then like I was saying, like comparing to Jeff's deal, like the financials are slow to move in the right direction, but they are eventually going to move there, but it's still slow and not that exciting. So I'm like, what are the alternative like dopamine hits, right, to keep you going as a business owner?
Okay, so I think this is a tough question. And to be clear, where I'm going to go with this is totally random. But when I think about Bloom, I think of 2 things. I think one, you're a relatively high volume contractor. You're residential, D2C. So this is the time of year where you guys are in grind mode. You're in the thick of it.
Totally.
And yet in 6 months, it's going to be, no offense, cold and miserable in Seattle. And so I always wonder, what are the things you can be doing now to offset the seasonality in the business? Or maybe is it just a mentality where like, hey, this is the time of year we're going to be grinding. And then the quality of life, the balance season is what comes in 4 months.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right. Obviously, I sort of scored an own goal by also moving yards in the middle of the busy season, which just way more work than I thought it was going to be.
By the way, I've never heard anybody who works not in an office say that it's as expected. It's always worse.
Right. No,
Always.
exactly. So yeah, so I think there is a general feeling of like, okay, like busy season is grindy, right? And then slow season will be less grindy. It's like when I take some time off. But I think like the building, and you've experienced this obviously, like building these businesses is extreme, like 5 steps forward, 4 steps back, right? It's not like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It really feels like bigger volatility than that.
Yeah.
So those 4 step back, like those are like, ugh, man, how do I like, again, prepare to go 5 steps forward?
Well, okay. So, and the other way I would say or think about it is, can you shorten your time horizons in the way you assess your business during busy season to have more regular dopamine hits? Like We used to put when we were in the dumpster business, like literally a piece of paper on the door so that every day and every week we would have like a count for number of rentals that we had. And so like we would just target shorter term goals to have the dopamine hits not so far away.
Yeah, no, it's a good. We do have I send out a weekly performance update to our leadership team, but I don't really have that. I don't have that against like a weekly goal per se. So it's not like I show it against budget for the year, but I don't show it like, hey, like I don't know, like each week we are trying to sell X $1,000 of tree work. We beat the weekly goal. Like I don't frame it like that, and maybe I should.
Do you have rewards that you share with your team? Like, are there things everybody generally enjoys? A monthly barbecue, gift cards, something that feels like a short-term reward?
We have quarterly bonuses just for the leadership team, but we don't have any kind of fun rewards on a more recurring basis for the wider team.
Okay. So I've done that in the past. And
Yeah.
as a
What
small
can you
business,
give some examples?
yeah, like gift cards, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Chipotle, just, whether you want to make them like random spot gifts to just boost morale short term, you go hand them out personally. I've really enjoyed doing that in the past because you don't, as the business owner, you take a lot of punches to the face, but it feels great to go around to your team and hand them a physical reward. It feels good.
Yeah.
And you get
Did you connect it to a specific thing? Or did you just sort of be like, hey man, like I see you're working hard?
Well, that's kind of why I said like random spot bonus where you don't tie it to anything. You just say, hey, look, it's August, whatever. We're in the thick of it. And I just want you to know that we're all pushing hard and we're all, we're nearing the end of the crazy season. I appreciate you. And here is a gift card, you name it. I've cashed out like gift cards on or credit card points for those in the past. So there's no like cash cost to it.
Right.
Or tie it, like do little competitions, a daily or a weekly competition for whatever kind of KPI drives the business. And try to reward enough people where it's not just one person getting it.
No, that makes sense. No, I like the kind of spot bonus idea because I think that's right. Like, I want to sort of recognize for folks like, hey, like we are grinding in a way that feels like I think I go back and forth on like what is the dollar amount that feels meaningful, but it is also the gesture, right? Like that's a key part of why that matters.
And so in the busy season, things like barbecues or team events are hard to do because the last thing everybody has is time.
Exactly.
And right now you probably don't feel it, but now's the time you're probably making some hay financially. It's just hard to see and feel it.
It's just all going into the move.
Well, that's your problem, the owner, not their problem, the employees.
Exactly. No, that's right.
So I don't know. That's probably if what you were really referring to in all in this line of questioning is how do we make operational improvements? Busy season is a hard time to do that. Your operational improvement is your freaking move right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And no, I don't think I want to do like, I'm not trying to do that. I think it's more of like, yeah, something about how do you recognize like I hate running, right? I did 0 running in our fitness competition, which you won, by the way, if people aren't tracking.
Sorry, my internet went out there. Can you say that again?
It sounds like I'll be coming to Florida at some point this fall/winter. But when I do run, if I have to run for some reason, like my style of running is entirely like if I'm running a 5K, like I know the checkpoints at which each like 1K is complete. And so like to get through a 5K, I need to be like, okay, like I have now run 1K. I only have to do that 4 more times. Like I've now run 2K. I only have to do that like twice and a little bit more. Like that's how my brain gets me to the finish line of a 5K, which is kind of negative. I don't know. It's not like the best mindset. I'm never like, oh yeah, like I could keep running. I'm like at the 5K mark. I'm like, that's all I had. And I don't know how to do that in a business setting.
Yeah. Well, the opposite of that analogy is like getting in a flow and not refusing to look at your clock, not running on a track and just, zoning out and getting into a flow. So I guess it's maybe trying to stand back and assess your team? Are they incremental thinkers that need to, see every goalpost as they pass
Right.
it? Or do they need to just get can you somehow make their life a little bit better? Maybe you spend a period of time where you sort of go a little softer on the extracurricular requirements of their
Mm-hmm.
job and just say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
look, we're in the final inning of this busy season grind.
Yep.
We're gonna just try and focus on customer service for the last month,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
we'll get back to, you know, the other non-quantifiable improvements of the business late fall.
Yeah. I think that's right. It's tough when you feel, I guess, like it always feels under optimized, right? That's just like the nature of businesses because it feels like there's like all these things that we could do better. I don't know.
All right, so the beef I have with podcasts is when there's just generalities spit
Yeah.
all the whole time. What are you
Yeah.
actually talking about? Give us a couple, for instances, of things, the step backs, the
Yeah.
lack of optimization you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, going back to the fixed price versus time and materials, like we've had a couple large projects be underbid, not in a, like a break the business kind of way, but in a way that the our team finds frustrating for themselves, right? The crew, I mean, because they know how many hours are on a job, right? And then if they show up to a job site and they look at the tree and they're like, right from the jump, they know they're underbid. Like it's not even like they have like job pressure. I'm not saying like they have to go like get this done within the contract. They just have professional pride, right? Which is amazing to have a team like that. And it's sort of like, ugh, like how do we improve our estimating process for bigger projects, right? And like we've started to make some shifts in terms of bringing in crew leads earlier into the quoting process and all of that. But that's an example of one where we've got like it has real impact on morale, when they don't feel like they can like win on a project.
Are these commercial jobs?
Yeah, they tend to be commercial.
Are you a commercial contractor?
A little bit, not a lot.
All right, so maybe the mindset reframe is this summer we took a bit of a chance on some
Yeah,
larger commercial jobs as, a first foray into the commercial world. And I, owner, didn't really expect those to be home runs. I'm expecting this to be an experiment to see, can we be successful there? And
right.
I feel that you guys felt a bunch of pressure because in some cases we might have underbid or misquote. And, I just want you guys to know, I see you feel the pressure. I appreciate that. And, insert your reward, insert
Yeah,
a paid day off or
right,
a whatever it is, and acknowledge that you just did some big commercial jobs and learned some lessons, but maybe you can go build out a commercial crew next
right,
summer and expand the business.
right. No, I like that. That's good. Like the idea of, yeah, just sort of connecting it to, hey, like this was a learning experience for the company, right? Like, which it was. We learned a lot from these commercial jobs. But yeah, I can definitely feel that like there's so much they can crush residential jobs, right? And I think just like the size of some of these jobs have been kind of both like in what's the word, kind of like intimidating, and they feel like they can't win, right? Like they can't get ahead of the hours bid.
All right. Well,
Um,
looking back,
yeah.
if all you did was break even on some of those unusual
Mhm.
commercial jobs, it's
Right.
not a loss because of what you learned and what you can do next year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't think we broke even. Like we made money on them for sure.
Plus, in the minds of your customer, my guess is you're the most professional contractor they've ever used.
Yep.
They probably know somehow that you guys took it on the chin for them. And there's
Totally.
no way that doesn't come back around in a positive way for you guys.
Yeah, that's the hope. So yeah, so that, it's and it also I think for us highlighted some like equipment we should have had. You know what I mean? Because commercial contractors just have different types of equipment than
Yep.
residential do.
Yep.
And so like the big project we have going this week, I'm now demoing a piece of equipment that we probably should have had on a prior project, right? And you could already tell the guys are pumped about that, right? Just to even have it on site and like like I'm looking very seriously at buying it, right? Whether it's that or another similar model, I don't know yet, but some like basically like some form of a skid steer. And it's a real like anywhere from $30,000 to $70,000 purchase. It's a real capex, but it's like that's the type of equipment that I think for the team is quite material. Like they really feel it when I'm like, hey, like that's a purchase I made.
Okay. So maybe
Uh,
that's the dopamine hit for them is like, hey, look, if we
Yeah.
can get good enough at this, I'm going to reinvest in some equipment that makes your lives better. And
Yeah.
if we can do this consistently, here, you know, I don't know who you assign to a commercial crew, but maybe that's a
Right.
reward in itself is,
You get to
being
run this piece. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
No, it's true. It's just funny because like, so I recently bought like a few months ago, I bought 2 new Ford Mavericks because we increased our sales team. We needed like that's how you start to build your business is it starts with sales, right? And I think for the crew, it was definitely a feeling of like you could have put that money into equipment for the crew, right? And which I'm sympathetic to. But like there's this weird thing of like until we have more sales, like it doesn't actually make sense to make the crew more efficient because we don't actually have the leads to fill that, right? Like I need to create more sales and then I can make the crews more efficient.
Yeah. And that's where you have a diverging interest with crews is,
Right.
you know, I don't know how their mentality is, but a lot of times sales are just what happens in the office. That's
Right.
not their responsibility. They're just there to do their daily job.
Right.
But you're a pretty open book. So I would guess that they understand like the full vision.
Totally. No, I mean, and our crew like are very understanding and like very patient with me, right? Like across the board, crew leaders and crew members. So I'm very lucky in that sense. But it is like as much at like, and they kind of understand on the face once I explain it, like, hey, like sales have to happen first, not
Yep.
because it's the most important, but because it just comes before having more work to do, right? Like that is just the order of operations.
Yep.
They can understand that and like not, and like they don't feel good,
Let's not forget it's the end of the busy season. So
right?
anything right now, it's like when you're underslept. Any little
Mhm.
problem becomes a big problem.
Yep.
And so, this is why this time of year, like I'm almost a fan of deferring reviews, like make them very short, if at all. Like I think I struggle with this, which is like, let's call it in a very busy, compressed time, all the things you might normally say yes to, just defer and try and get some balance back until,
Right.
I don't know, when does busy season slow down? October 1?
Probably like November 1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I was looking at this recently, actually. I would say it's a pretty clean 6 months and 6 months on, 6 months off. Like it really starts sort of like May ish and goes through October.
And do you build backlog in the summer?
Yes.
And so maybe that's another thing you can do too is let's just more details are helpful usually. Do you take deposits from your customers?
Yes.
Okay.
15%.
So it's not a negative working capital business, but it's a no working capital business.
It's a low working capital business for sure.
Okay. So is there some amount of backlog build where you've generated some prepay cash that you can turn around and invest, or is it not that sufficient?
It's not that sufficient because we also just like aren't generating a ton of cash yet, right?
Yeah.
Like we're still like because of our debt payments and all of that. So I feel like we're still very much like we need the business to be a little bit like we're right on that kind of you once you do all the overhead and all the payroll and all the fixed debt payments like which is good because like we're covering it obviously, but we're also like right on the cusp of real lever like financial leverage, right? Where incremental crews from here are quite cash generative, but we're not quite there where I'm like, oh yeah, like I have cash to give.
Well, Jerome Powell just said rates are coming down.
Ah, we pray to the Jerome Powell gods.
I mean, if your SBA has floating rate debt comes down 25 bips, then, I don't know what that means, but probably a couple grand a month.
Yeah, totally. So I mean that alone is meaningful in terms of being I mean that would like cover the payment on a skid steer. You know what I mean?
I mean, isn't that fascinating?
Totally.
Like,
I mean, this is the like when I worked in private equity, right? And we like talked about rates, like it was so much more like theoretical,
nebulous.
like
Yeah.
yeah, it was like economics 101, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, yeah, like if the Fed lowers rates like 25 to 50 basis points, like I can now go buy a skid steer and like be in the same spot.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
And isn't that like a very incremental basis exactly what they're trying to do when they lower rates? Like
Exactly.
that puts cash right back into the small business owner's pocket. Ideally, they turn around and either, you know, raise wages or
Yeah.
hire more
exactly
people.
right.
And instead, you're going to rent a skid steer or buy one and try and grow
Yeah.
your business.
Yeah, because the skid steer payment is like $17.50 a month to get that. And so yeah, like I think 50 basis points would cover that roughly.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so we'll see. But yeah, I go back and forth. You know, when I think about the wins, right? Like obviously it's hard not to look at the other search deals that happened at my kind of vintage, so to speak, right? Like early 2022. And like there's been a lot of like home runs since then. But there's also obviously been plenty that went sideways or just didn't work out for a variety of reasons. And so I think like stomaching a few years of rate increases and just macro uncertainty, like that is a win in and of itself, but it's not the most like exciting win.
Yeah, that's true. But that's the incremental wins and losses are what a small business owner, not to say they're stuck in, but that's the life in
No,
those middle years.
totally. But it's just wild to watch how some searchers are really, they just like crush it in their first few years. And that's where I'm like, there's some mix obviously of like, what did you buy? How much did you pay? But it's hard not to take that personally at some point, right? It's just be like, oh man, they're just like better operators.
Mm, yeah. I mean, you also, to be clear, like when you have a lot of debt on your business and the only way to grow organically is to reinvest in people or equipment, it's not easy.
Hmm.
Like, what are like the big levers you can truly pull?
I mean, outside of big acquisitions, right? It's just sort of slow, steady organic growth.
Or maybe the things you could do if you had a slug of equity. You could go buy
Yeah.
equipment and not have a debt service payment on it.
Right.
Go acquire another crew without any incremental leverage, those kind of things.
Yeah. I have thought about, like I've sort of set in my head a clear goal of like, we need to get to 5 crews. And I've communicated this to our team as well. But like the 5 crews idea is coming primarily from like, what does that mean in terms of P&L volume? And so there is an argument to be made, like, do we just try to generate 3 really efficient crews, right? And just have them go out there and crush it constantly. So like we could do it that way and like invest more in equipment than we invest in new people.
What would happen if you did that? Your backlog would blow out another few weeks.
Well, no, it'd be the opposite. Like, well, basically, like as you increase sales, your backlog could either get eaten up by more crew members, or your backlog can get eaten up by more efficient crews, right? So it's one or the other kind of.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
And so, but the downside of what is that, like, if you're not growing your crews, like you have less like climber spots, you have less crew leader spots, like you have less places for crew members to grow. So it's been sort of in my head, the more obvious way to grow is to like just increase crews. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that's correct.
Well, I think going back to what we started talking about, which is like those bigger commercial jobs, it would be a non-incremental way to grow is to build out a new division. If somehow you could get some recurring work from some large commercial customers that
Right.
you had line of sight into the work they were going to give you, and maybe it's
Yeah.
not, you don't make as much margin on it,
Right.
but you can build around it, right? If 2 or 3 or 4 larger commercial customers were to say, hey, we're going to promise you X jobs, X revenue,
Right.
we need you to promise you can deliver it. Well, you'd go build around that, and
Right.
that could move.
I mean, we get that sometimes from like City of Seattle, right? They'll send us an RFP or whatever because we're one of the 4 approved vendors for the city. But like they need it done in like 3 weeks, which is like we just cannot turn it around that fast.
Oh, that's funny. I thought you were going to say they just demand such a cheap price that you can't make it work.
Well, I mean, the prices are set, right? We've already committed to prices with them, which are lower than our residential on a net basis because we have to pay prevailing wage for those jobs, right? And so that it adds this like layer of complication. But the team obviously likes them because they get like prevailing wage for tree work in Seattle is $65 an hour.
Wow. Is it T&M work or is it fixed
Yeah,
work?
it's T&M work. Yeah. So like this public utilities job this week is all prevailing wage for the team. So I'm like rotating the crew through so everyone gets a little bit of prevailing wage.
Interesting. Do you want to describe what that is for the folks who don't know?
Prevailing wage.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically I think tends to be the case for most municipal work. It depends on your city or your jurisdiction, but they generally have labor rates set by trade. That's called prevailing wage, and you're required to pay at least that. I think it's a vestige of like union type negotiation. I'm not entirely sure where it comes from. My guys were actually asking me yesterday the job set, and I wasn't sure. But basically, for any of these municipal jobs to kind of ensure fairness on the pay scale, they sort of have basically set what you have to pay your crews. And it's almost always much higher than what you pay market. And so you have to track hours differently. You need to submit your hours a little bit differently. And so like we have to pay. And it's most impactful for like our most junior guys, right? Because the difference between prevailing wage and their normal wage is the most meaningful. And so for us, like we have to effectively are bid at more or less our normal pricing, but the pay is way higher. So like for us, it's much lower on a net basis, but it allows us to go get some bigger volume contracts and fill more capacity. And so that's where I'm like, okay, like some percentage of the work being this mix is worth it because it also like, not only does it fill volume for us, it's a net benefit to the team. And it just sort of allows us to kind of build that backlog base that we need to grow.
Or could you defer it until slower season? I'm trying to think how that cuts. Like in slower season with the incremental cost of the labor. No, it would help you because you would be able to keep your crews engaged in it and keep your backlog steadier instead of like spiking in late summer and then
Yeah. No, it's to our benefit generally if we can delay work to the winter because and honestly, it happens a lot where there's a lot of trees that are actually better off pruned in the winter. So we'll sometimes have clients, call us out in the summer for a quote and we'll say like, hey, like this is what we'll do, but like we should do this in January, which is beneficial for us, but it's also beneficial for the trees. So, like that's a win-win. But with the commercial clients, I haven't seen a lot like we don't have like a base of clients that are just like have the same work for us over and over. It's a lot of repeat clients, but each project is a little bit different. And so that's where it's a little bit tough to predict when they're coming and when they do come, it's like usually like they want it done within a month. And so so like I feel like being responsive is actually the edge with commercial clients.
Yeah, it's a pickle.
I don't know what the right answer is, but yeah, I mean, building out commercial, the challenge is like, do you just end up with two subscale divisions, right? Like a subscale residential division and a subscale commercial division? Like, I don't know.
Well, let's talk about another way to grow, not incrementally, which I'm spitballing, but you're very much geographically focused on.
For sure.
Is it eastern or northeastern Seattle? Is that right?
We could, well, our best market is North Seattle.
Okay.
But we do all of Seattle and kind of like a 15-ish mile, 20-mile radius around Seattle.
Is there a significant portion of like greater Seattle you don't cover well because of the cost of mobilizing there?
There is. We could go either north. Yeah, I mean, yes, basically. Like we could definitely expand.
I'm trying to think through. You already have a brand name, I'm guessing, in all of Seattle. And so could you so there wouldn't be a lot of incremental cost per se to doing work that's further away. And maybe you just have to have a remote crew and, you could capture a whole different segment of greater Seattle. Obviously there will be incremental spend, but like the brand name is already going to get you leads in that entire
those areas. Yeah, we get leads already that we refer out, right? That are outside our service area.
Okay. So what if you didn't refer them out? when you refer them out, you don't get a referral fee for that, right? So
No, because these are all just sort of like friendly companies to us that we're
Yep.
friends with. I think it's the challenge is, and because I've thought about that, is like your location matters as a tree company because of like you need to come back, you need to refill like your consumables, your parts, your equipment, whatever, like your saws, like all of that type of stuff. So like you kind of need some sort of a home base for every crew. And it's really hard for the home base to be that functional unless it's like 3 to 5 crews. That's the problem I've run into. And maybe I'm like thinking too small about it. And like maybe there is a version of a remote crew that works more like efficiently than that. But like I worry about basically ending up with 2 subscale locations versus just like focusing on one good location.
Yeah, I follow. So what's the next step function? Is it enough lead flow to then justify investing in another crew and the equipment to go from, sorry,
Yeah.
you said 3 or 4 crews currently?
We're at 3 crews currently, and we're trying to grow to a 4th.
Got it. Okay.
And we're close, right? Like right now, our backlog is running about a week ahead of where it was last year. And that's with, like a little bit more. Like we've been peppering in the 4th crew here and there when we can. Like if nobody calls out sick, right? Like then we have like just enough to run a small 4th crew. And we're hiring up. So we will have the people for a 4th crew. And our lead gen is like right kind of close to in line with that, but not quite. Like it's not a given yet.
How many weeks do you burn off the backlog in winter?
A lot. So like if we get to the end of November, or sorry, sort of like if we get to Thanksgiving, the last couple of years we've gotten to Thanksgiving with like 10 weeks of backlog. And then by May, we're at like 3.
Okay. So it's like skinny enough where you don't want to go hire an extra crew, burn your backlog to 6 weeks at Thanksgiving, because then
No.
there's a world where late
run out of work.
spring, you run out of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's why you have to be really careful as you hire into this.
Unless you can convince some larger commercial customers to go
Delay work.
delay or front and make it so that they're willing to let you do work in, I don't know, the weather, April, May, so
Right.
that right when you would otherwise be burning your backlog down to nothing, well, that's your commercial.
You have the slots filled. Yeah. No, it's a good thought. I mean, I wonder if it's worth, like we have a chunk of commercial clients, like property managers and stuff like that, right? Like I wonder if it's worth reaching out to them and saying, hey, like, can you look ahead at your April and May? And if you can budget us in, we can give you a price break for those months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's
a good
the
thought.
time when you have the most risk in your business.
Correct. But absolutely.
So if you can de-risk that month or two, then right now, because right now what you're doing is you're protecting a little bit your backlog.
Yes.
And if you
Which makes us less competitive right now, right?
Exactly. And if you didn't care about burning your backlog down to 5 weeks by Thanksgiving, you would have zero qualms about getting another crew in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like we're doing it really, really carefully right now because I want to make sure we've built enough backlog going into the winter. But that's exactly right. Like if I could pre-sell work for April, May next year, like that would take off a lot of stress.
Plus, I don't have any idea if this is true, but how many customers or leads call and they say, Bluma picks up, they're like, hey, we're 10, 12 weeks out right now. And they're like, oh, that's great, but I'm not waiting that long.
Plenty. Yeah. Like that's where we start. Like I have found that our repeat clients, they will wait till about 10 weeks. Our new clients are much less likely to wait that long.
And new clients is where all your incremental growth is because a lot of your new clients turn into existing. So
totally.
And here we go full circle, which is if you didn't have leverage on the business, your April, May scaries wouldn't matter as much because you wouldn't burn a lot of cash.
You wouldn't burn cash. Exactly.
And so this is like a fundamental like fork in the road between leveraged and unleveraged businesses is those guys don't care going into Christmas being skinny around backlogs. So what? I burn a little cash in April, May, and I make it all in the summer.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And so that's where like they can run skinny on backlog and just attack the market every year.
And you're playing defense when everybody else is attacking because you've got some leverage. Yes. So maybe this is the answer: is finding a way to get if you don't even make any money, but I guess we can talk about not making money pre-leverage payments or post, but get to a
Right.
point where you can take on that big commercial work early, keep your crews busy, and be able to turn summer into attack mode instead of like essentially.
We're like getting ready for the winter, right? We're like chipmunks or whatever.
I was going right there. I was thinking like,
Yeah.
what is it called when squirrels like bury nuts in the ground?
Yeah, it's literally that. That's exactly what we do all summer. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Stockpile. I don't know. Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
So, but it's an interesting thought.
Totally. Yeah. I wonder how yeah, I need to reach out to some of our commercial clients and see if that's of interest.
Or even your existing like pruning clients. And I don't understand the business well enough to like be helpful, but to the extent you can shift work to those 2 months, then
Absolutely.
this time of year you can go crush and try and burn
Right.
that backlog down and start generating some cash for hibernating
Right.
and not have
Right.
to go into hibernation prep mode.
Totally. The one weird challenge in our business is that the trees keep growing, right? And so
Wait, isn't that why you're in business?
listen, it's a core part of why our business exists. I agree. But like 6 months out is actually a long time to let a quote sit, right? So like if we were to bid something today and say like, hey, like let's do it in April, May, like that's long enough that the tree could have changed enough that our bid is not good anymore. So there's a little bit of that we have to figure out, but that's a solvable problem.
It's almost like in some respects you have to educate your customer and
Right.
sell them on whatever benefits you can of and this, don't think of it as like delaying the work till April. It's fronting the work into
Right.
ahead of busy season. I mean, does it
I
really?
guess that's right.
Yeah.
No, that's right. That's fair. I guess we've always thought of it as your delay. Like you convince your leads today to push out to later. Obviously, there's like a lot of leads we'll get next summer. We just don't know who they are yet per se, but we have a decent idea. Like there will be a lot of maybe it's an interesting thought. Maybe that's the easier way. Instead of commercial, maybe it's like we have a certain number of residential clients that work with us every June, July, August, right? Maybe we just reach out to them and say, hey, like next year, will you guys pull forward to April, May? And I can give you a bit of a price break on that.
Or maybe try not to lead with the price break. Just
Right.
ask them, say, hey, can we get you start of the year? You're not subject to the qualms of our backlog. You're going to get the
Right.
freshest crews. Your
That's true.
trees are going to look the best. Anyway, I'm just trying to maybe
it's a good thought.
try not to lead with
I
price
never
break.
thought of it. Yeah, I haven't thought about it as like a pull forward. I've always thought of it as a pushback. But yeah, you're totally right. It can
You know-
also be a pull forward.
Yeah, don't try to talk them into deferring their spend.
Revenue today.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, that's right. That's where I've always been sort of like, okay, like if we defer it now, like they might change their mind come that time. But you're right, like pulling forward is different.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my like January marketing push to our internal clients.
Yeah. Or I
Right.
guess you're not actually going to be slow until the holidays. I didn't know that.
Correct.
I didn't know you stayed that busy that late into the season.
Yeah, because we have like there's all the summer type work because it's just like the weather is good. People want to work on their landscapes, but then there's a lot of work that's sort of related to getting ahead of the bad weather, right? Like get ahead of storms, get ahead of windstorms in particular. So there's a lot of like kind of prep for the winter type tree trimming in October, November. I don't know. So we'll see. But I appreciate the thoughts. Those are all those are gonna like bounce around my head now for the next week. Yeah, it's interesting. I forget what our topic was even supposed to be today. We lost the train of thought. It turned into just business consultation.
Well, I don't know. Well, I guess we do kind of have a sense for who listens, but for
Yeah.
anybody in the seat or thinking about being in the seat, that is how a small business owner is forced to think, is these sort of outside the box creative ideas to generate incremental growth. And it's funny, it's not often you truly see like the second order effects of having leverage on your business. But I guarantee you, your competitors who have been around for 50 years, run by older owners without any leverage, they don't have to think about it that way.
Totally. The nice thing, or I don't know if it's a nice thing, but one of the good things is like our best competitor is also a relatively recent, like, high growth business, and they've bought a ton of equipment to support it. So I think they're in a similar, I don't like, I'm sure it's not quite as much, but they have just like, they have a higher overhead threshold than we do and all of that. And so, like, it's actually a pretty fair fight with them, so to speak, on the competition front, but against the smaller guys who've been around long enough, like, like, our overhead is way higher than theirs.
Meaning you're not the high cost competitor, the high price competitor.
We're actually not. Yeah.
Interesting.
We're probably second. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. No, which really helps.
Yeah.
And it's unlikely, right? Like, if you're buying a search business, it's unlikely that you're not the highest cost.
Well, I thought that was actually a pretty useful conversation. If anybody thinks that this is like, once you have pulled all the easy levers, well, then it's time to, go a step further at the hard stuff.
I will, by the way, I just cut our Google ad spend to 0. We got better at lead attribution, and the more time I spent on lead attribution, like, yes, we got leads from it, but the leads were closing worse, and, like, we weren't really generating a positive, like, ROAS, like, return on ad spend. And so, like, I just cut it, and we'll see what happens.
Holy cow, is that going to save the bottom line in the short run?
It will in the short run. We'll see how that actually feels on a lead flow standpoint. But one of our bottlenecks is definitely salesperson capacity, right? So, like, if I could get rid of some of their lowest quality leads, like, that actually has value also, because then we'll get to our higher quality leads faster.
What percent of sales were you spending?
Not a lot. Like, we were, like, our marketing spend on an LTM basis is like 6% of revenue.
What? I mean,
it's real, to be clear. It's real dollars. Yeah.
If what you find is like that doesn't impact sales meaningfully enough, that when you cut spend, that falls a lot of the way to the bottom line.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've cut, like, Google ad spend is not our only ad spend. Like, we also do direct mail and other things, and the direct mail has worked better. But yeah, how much did we cut? We cut we probably cut like 2.5% of revenue.
If that works, meaning it doesn't cut lead flow enough and revenue doesn't decline and you get a little rate relief, like, that is meaningful monthly cash flow.
No, that really comes back. Yeah. That's what's kind of interesting is you have all these weird little levers where, like, the first couple of years I was I couldn't do good lead attribution, but I was also too terrified to turn off that lead flow.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like, I feel like our organic lead flow is getting stronger and stronger. And so I can actually experiment with the Google lead flow a little bit. And, like, that's real cash cost. Similarly, like, probably sometime next year, I'll probably explore a refi of the SBA debt, right? And, like, re-amortize it out to 10 years again. Like, that'll release cash flow once I do that. So you have these sort of small incremental levers you can do over time.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. There's, especially, like, once you're a seasoned borrower, right? Then there's banks, like, there's lots of banks that won't touch you on the acquisition because they just don't underwrite that risk. But if you're just an existing business that is looking to refi their debt, like, there's a lot more lenders who are interested in that.
I would love to see, like, let's just go through the math quick and maybe don't make the numbers super accurate for confidentiality purposes, but, like, between
but I can do like a fake version,
a re-amort for your debt, bringing your ad spend down. I'll bet you could easily free up 10 or 15K a month of cash.
Right. So, so think about it this way, right? Like, if, let's say you're a small business owner with 2 million of SBA debt, right? If that were the case, and, like, right now you're at prime plus 2, so that's 9.5% over 120 months, your current monthly payment is $26,000.
Yeah.
So now if that gets re-amortized, you're right, and you've been sort of, like, plugging away at that for a while, right?
Yep. Re-amortize it and bring your debt service, your interest cost down 50 bips.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So let's say you've had a 2 million slug of debt, and let's say you're 3 years into your deal, right? And you've just been making your payments slowly over time. That means, like, your current debt load is going to be 1.6 million. But now let's say you go refi that, and it's going to go up a little bit. So, like, because you have to pay a new SBA fee. So, like, let's say your new balance is 1.63 million. your payment on that, let's say now your rate is, let's say you get prime plus 150, right? And actual rates go down by 50 basis points, right? And so that's where like now, so you're at 7, so you're at 8.5% rate. You're resetting to 120 periods again, like 10 years on that 1.6 million. Like your payment is now 20 grand, whereas before it was 26 grand.
Yeah, you're saving $6,000 of true monthly cash.
Exactly. So like, and if you're a business that, if you bought your business with 2 million of debt, right? That means like the total deal was probably something like 2.25 million, right? So, and if you bought that for like 4 times, like your EBITDA was probably something around like 560K, right? So 6 times 12 is 72,000. So like you've now, you've created something like almost 15% of your EBITDA and cash flow just from 50 basis points of rate, 50 basis points of refi improvement, and the actual re-amortization of the amort. So that's where like, if you're feeling cash pressured, like that is a real, like if you can just sort of string together payments for a couple years and then do a refi, that's a meaningful lever to actually release cash flow to then go reinvest into growth.
Sure is.
Anyways, so that's probably on the table sometime next year. Because I did the refi when I did the add-on acquisition last year, like I can't do it right now. I got to wait a little bit longer and season it. It just won't be that meaningful until you've paid down more debt. But once you've done it for like 2 years, like the math starts to look really simple.
That plus if you can find some Google inefficiency and cut that cash spend,
Exactly.
you might be able to find $10,000 a month.
Oh, that would be nice. I would love to find that. By the way, if there are business owners listening to this who are down to come on and just get like a free coaching session, or like not even coaching, just like a chop it up about your business strategy, like we could totally do that, right?
I think it's a great idea. I think it would be fun if you've got to be at least a year, 2 or 3 in, so you fundamentally understand the levers of the business.
Correct. You need to understand the levers of the business. You need to have like done the low hanging fruit.
Yep.
Right. And now you're at that point of like, okay, now what do I do?
All right. If that is you out there, can you send us a DM on Twitter or an email? And I think we are probably booked out about a month, but we'd love to get you on.
Yeah, that'd be fun. We can be, it's a lot more fun when it's not our business too. we can just poke questions.
Goes back to, it's way easier to give somebody else advice than yourself.
Exactly. I would love to do more of that now. All right, cool.
That was fun.
Well, you have a plane to catch, right?
I do. And I think that's all we got. Thanks for joining The Intentional Owner, and we will see you next time.